Those Euphoria girl.
Hey, everybody.
I was just thinking of the casting because, like, if Jordan Fisher was Chad, that'd be amazing. But I was like, who's gonna play Sharpay? And then I was thinking they could get that girl on Euphoria to play Sharpay.
I know this is supposed to be me reviewing TharnType, but Stephanie was telling me about her opinions about High School Musical, the series.
Snubbed she was.
Okay.
Snubbed she was.
Well, back to what I was doing. Hello.
Gina was snubbed.
So this is my wrap-up review of TharnType the series because today, for those of us in America, was the day that the finale was accessible because Line Television shows the series, but Line Television is not available in America for some reason. So we had to wait until they made the links available. Hello, Sarah. And so the links are available now, and the series has been watched, and I have thoughts, opinions, just everything about the series. For those of you who aren't used to it, if this is your first time with me, that is the sound of my daughter in the background because it is her mission in life to ruin any lives that I do.
No one is free.
Anyway, so this is the finale of TharnType, and I've been watching TharnType since the beginning. I fell into boys love really quickly with Love by Chance, and when I found out that TharnType was a continuation of a few of the characters from Love by Chance, I knew I had to watch this show. I was surprised at first that they didn't use the same actors that were in Love by Chance. I was like, why would you do this? Because they are related stories. But after I got over my initial surprise that they decided not to use the same actors, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? That doesn't really matter right now. We're where we are. Let's just see what happens with the storyline. And truth be told, the first, I would say, 2 episodes of the show, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get into it. Type, who is one of the lead characters, he was not likable.
I got no type.
And because he wasn't very likable, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do 12 episodes with a character that I really kind of disliked. Also, I thought that Tharn was kind of a wimp because Type was like totally wrecking shop around their dormitory, and it seemed like Tharn wasn't standing up to him, and I didn't understand things. And then it took a turn the night that Type got drunk and fell asleep in Tharn's bed, and Tharn put a bunch of hickeys all over Type's body. And that turn of events wasn't exactly positive for me. I was kind of like, this feels really weird. This feels kind of sexually salty to me. And then after that, there was the shower scene with Tharn giving Type a blowjob in the shower and
Yikes.
Type looking like he didn't want to be touched. Like there were a lot of things that didn't sit well with me. But once I got to the point where their relationship seemed consensual on both sides, I'm like, okay, romance, let's get into it. And then that's when all of our happiness disappears because all of a sudden it's us dealing with Type, Tharn, and Tar coming into the middle of their relationships. So, for those of us who watched Love by Chance, we already knew what the deal was with Tar and why it was that he couldn't tell Type why he broke up with him. And not because of spoilers, by the way. So many spoilers. Don't watch this if you don't want spoilers. So many spoilers. But we already knew what Tar's secret was because it is a major plot point in the Tar Tum storyline of Love by Chance.
Tar Tum.
Yeah, Tar and Tum. See, my daughter is still not used to these Thai names, and I get it. But because we knew that, if you'd already watched Love by Chance, we were like, okay, how is this going to be revealed? How is this going to be known? What's going to happen? There was one character that we did not know was going to be a major catalyst for all the action that took place in this series. And I was so grateful when I was able to find out kind of what was going on all along because it just brought all the storylines together for me. It made it to where it made sense to even have Tar and Tum and Type in Love by Chance. It just brought everything together for me, let's say. So going through the series, there really is an A and a B. Like, if you watch this series and you wanted to know kind of like where to stop watching, if you just want everything to be happy and rosy and sunny, stop watching episode 6. If you are here for the drama and you want to skip to the drama, start with episode 6, in my opinion, because that's really when the drama starts. So I know I've said a lot and it's all kind of messy. And for those of you who aren't watching the show, I'm sure everything that I've said is like in one ear, out the other, and you've already lost interest. Let me talk to the people who have been watching the show. Let's start with the thumbnail for this video. Khao Na is the fucking actor of the series. Flat out. He is the actor of the series. So Long is Tharn's best friend, and he's been Tharn's best friend for 4 years. Him and Tharn have been through a lot together, and he has been by Tharn's side through many of Tharn's failed relationships. And because of that, he's become kind of a near constant in Tharn's life, full of changes. And he was taken aback when he found out that Tharn was dating Type, especially when he realized how very deep their relationship was, because he's experienced Tharn have one other really deep relationship, and this was very similar but also so much more important to Tharn than his last deep relationship. And so Long felt a need to protect Tharn from someone that he didn't think deserved to have him. And the things that Long does to protect Tharn are like Misery level psychoactivity. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Misery with Kathy Bates, or have you ever seen
I'm looking for a cock-a-doodie bug.
I'm so sorry. I should make her leave because she's gonna be a disruption.
You know that video with the lady who was looking for the Misery book by the author of the book in the movie? She thought it was a real guy. He's like, I can check it out for you. Even though this is Stephen King.
This live stream is a mess. This live stream is a mess. Please ignore her. Anywhoots, girl. Like, he goes to extreme levels in order to be able to vet the men who are with Tharn. And when it finally all comes to a head in this last episode, Khao Na, that's the name of the actor, not the character Long. The actor who plays Long gives, in my opinion, the 2 best performances of the entire series. So, thank you. She's such a mess back there. So Long, of course, has a big confrontation with Type because Type has found out that Long has been plotting and scheming to destroy Tharn's relationships this whole time. And Long gets into a fist fight / pummeling with Type, and then does like the typical super villain thing that you see in all of the movies where they're like, and now let me tell you my grand plan and everything I've done. And of course, Type, being the fucking idiot that he is, he reveals that he's been recording the conversation. And he happens to reveal this while there's a big rock sitting right next to them in this tussle. And of course, Long, thinking that, oh no, he's going to destroy my relationship with Tharn, is seriously contemplating picking up this rock and bashing Type in the head. Thank goodness there were people watching to stop this from happening. But after that, Long realizes that Tharn, who happened to be one of the people that rushed in to stop this rock bashing, has heard everything that he has done. And he proceeds to give one of the best performances I have ever seen in A Boy's Love. Like, I really mean that. Like, his performance to me in that scene was almost on par with the performance that Wayne gave in the last episode of Making Our Days Count. he proceeds to break down, but like also try to convince Tharn that he did this for his own interest. And like it's all these levels of manipulation and codependence and gaslighting. Like it all comes together. And the whole time that Long is giving this speech to Tharn about how I'm the only one you can trust. Everything I did for you. I was testing these people because they're not good enough for you. I know you love me. I love you. We're the most important people in each other's life. We can't let other people change this. You have to trust me. Like when he's giving all this, he looks like he is struggling to hold on to reality. Like the look on his face is like, I'm I am doing everything I can to keep from falling apart right now, because if I lose your confidence, if I lose your trust, I don't have any reason to exist. So I'm willing to lie, I'm willing to cry, I'm willing to, you know, just do anything I can to keep you in my world. And it is so effective. It is such a great performance that I just remember thinking like this right here. This right here would have been an award nominated performance. Like it's amazing because it felt very real. And for the first time since I started watching this show, including the special episode they did about Long, it was the first time I felt bad for Long. And I didn't feel bad for him in terms of like, oh, you should be friends again. I felt bad for him in terms of, wow, look how far this person has fallen, because they don't have any other existence outside of their obsession. And that's a sad existence to have. So I definitely felt a lot of emotional connection with the performance that Kauna gave in that moment. Also, the performance that he gave when he went home. So after the big confrontation, Long leaves the area and he goes back to his apartment where his sister is waiting for him. By the way, whoever the actress is that played his sister, you suck. You are a terrible wooden cardboard actress. You're pretty and all, but your face didn't fit. There's no way I believe you love your brother. And when you said, if I didn't love you, I wouldn't let you cry on my expensive clothes, that was the most believable line you gave in your entire scene, because you suck as an actress. Anyway, I digress. He goes into his apartment. His sister is waiting for him. She's like, hey, I just came back from Germany. And then he proceeds to be like, why doesn't anyone in this family love me? Why doesn't mom love me? Why doesn't dad love me? You and my big brother don't love me. Why am I even alive if I'm going to be living a lonely life like this? Why wouldn't you let me die? And it was again, another crying performance, but it was also, again, another really great performance, because if you didn't hear him say all of that, then you may not understand how completely broken he was after his confrontation with Tharn. One thing about this show is there are a lot of really broken people on this show. Tharn is a very broken person. Type is a very broken person. Tar is a very broken person. And Long is a very broken person. And when you have all of these different people kind of colliding into this one big blow up, no one escapes unscathed. Everyone comes away with wounds. But throughout the series, we didn't have a chance to share Long's brokenness until this very end. And in his confrontation with his sister, it made all the puzzle pieces about Long's character make sense. Like the whole picture finally came together. You have a kid who, it seemed like his parents didn't have time for him. His older brother and sister are very material minded and they didn't have time for him either. And then even after Long's scene with his sister, Tharn explains that when he first ran into Long, Long didn't have any friends and he didn't talk to anybody, and that he was actually half jealous of Long because it seemed like Long had all this freedom. And sometimes you can mistake an individual's freedom as being a benefit when really it could just be loneliness and failure to connect, the inability to connect with anybody. And so having that scene with him and his sister, it put that final puzzle piece kind of in play to show that in his mind, everything he did was able to be justified because he was desperately hanging on to the one person he felt actually loved him. Again, not saying it's right, not saying what he did is at all justified. What he did was really shitty. What he did was the worst thing. The fact that he paid men to gang rape Tar, that's unforgivable. Absolutely unforgettable. But what Cal Na, the actor, did for Long is he helped us to understand Long's motivation. Because without those two scenes in particular, nothing that Long did made any sense. Even if it was, I'm secretly in love with Tharn and he just doesn't know it because he's busy dating all these other boys. That's not enough motivation to pay men to gang rape a kid. That's just not enough because
There's
also
really no
you have to keep
motivation for people to gang rape a kid.
I'm just saying, like, there's no psychological motivation. But you have to remember that Tar, at the point where he was gang raped, was probably 16 or 17 years old. He was young. Like, in context, he was young. And so to pay a group of men to drug and rape a kid, a teenager, that's the lowest level of depravity that you could probably reach. And the fact that he got there, you're like, it can't be just because of a simple attraction. It just can't be because I wanted to be my boyfriend and not yours. It had to be something else. And seeing Long completely break down the way he did, you understand he no longer is operating in the same reality that everybody else is operating at this point. He is purely driven by his obsession with Tharn. He is purely driven by this ideal relationship that he has in his mind between himself and Tharn. He's completely motivated by the fact that his world only consists of him and Tharn. And Cal Na did an amazing job of bringing that home in this very last episode. And for that, he is the fucking actor of the series. Fight me if you wanna, put it in the comment section, but he killed it. He really was. He was the MVP of the series as far as I'm concerned. I've had a lot of people that I've seen comment saying that Mew was the actor of the series, especially as he's crying over the fact that Type left him. I like Mew as an actor, okay. I think that personally, Golf was the standout actor of the two. I think that he showed a lot more variety in his acting skills, like an ability to look super happy, super angry, super sad. Like, he really showed his range. Whereas Mew kind of vacillated between, like, either being kind of smarmy, being kind of stoic, and being kind of sad. Those seem to be the majority emotions he played with.
Smarmy, stoic, and safe.
Yeah, like when he's talking about, you know, do you want to eat me? Like smarmy, stoic in terms of sometimes his face would just get stone blank as he was angry but not showing his anger. And then sad, of course, all of his crying because of his relationship falling apart. I think that Mew is a decent actor, but I would like to see him have more range. I would like to see him kind of fill in the gaps between all of those different faces and maybe make it more fluid, the transitions that he's doing on all of those. But his character Tharn, because I'm all over the place with this review, by the way. I'm following no narrative. This is off the cuff, so please understand. His broken character, it almost makes sense that Mew would be so disjointed in the display of his emotions because he is one of those people who goes to extremes in his relationship. And that's one of the things that if I was going to give Mew any credit for, maybe he's thinking at a higher level than the rest of us in terms of the way he's portraying Tharn. Tharn is somebody who has been through a lot. His first relationship was when he was 14 years old and he was sleeping with a guy who probably was maybe 18 or 19 years old at the time. That's not cool. Honestly, it's really not cool. And this was his brother's friend, so this was somebody that he trusted, that was close to the family, that took advantage of his youth and naivete and had sex with him, you know? And since that time, he's struggled with both his role as a sexual partner, going from being a bottom to a top, and also his role as a gay person, because prior to his relationship with San, I don't think he knew he was gay. And so to go from being a kid, exploring your sexuality, having to acknowledge that, like, not only do I enjoy having gay sex, but I also am not attracted to women. I am gay, and I'm gay in a society that doesn't really take being gay as super acceptable. Like, it's okay, but it's not super acceptable.
Just don't put all that gay stuff in my face. You know, I'm like okay with it. But you know, why is it always in my face? Like, why is it always on TV?
Why are
is it
you
in all
always
these
in the
movies?
background? My goodness. Ugh. So he's in a society that doesn't necessarily accept being gay. He's a young kid kind of dealing with these sexuality feelings, coming to terms with the fact that he'll never be with a woman because that's just not where his attraction lies. And then also, I started out as a bottom. I don't feel comfortable with that. I am a top. But also,
Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom.
are you serious right now? Are you serious? Okay, so defining his role within gaydom, but then also trying to have relationships and constantly having failed relationships. Like, this is one of those things that it kind of goes back to a conversation I had about Dark Blue Kiss, where in Dark Blue Kiss, you had Pete and Cal talking about just because we're gay, we don't feel the need to prove that we're better people than everybody else. We should have the right to operate as normal like everybody else. We shouldn't have to prove our character, our value just because we're gay. And for Tharn, for him, it's wanting to have a normal relationship, wanting to be in love with somebody, wanting to give your all to somebody, and to have every single relationship you've ever had always end with people inexplicably leaving. Because that's the other thing that Long did. Long not only destroyed every relationship that Tharn had by making it end, he also made it to where when people left Tharn, they left him with no explanation. Like, in the background, Long was pulling the strings so that Tharn lost all of his self-confidence, really. And so he had to be very stoic and very closed off, or operate on a, well, this is just a sex thing, because he didn't know what to do to maintain a relationship, because everything that he had been trying to do hadn't worked thus far. So he kept giving more and more of himself. Whenever he would allow Type to hit him or berate him or say we're just sex buddies, everything that Type did to Tharn that was shitty behavior and that no one should ever accept in a relationship, Tharn took that behavior and just kind of swallowed it up, because nothing that he had done up till now had made a relationship last. So that's why he was just like, okay, well, I guess you can slap me. I guess you can kick me. I guess you can punch me.
What?
Whatever it takes to make you stay by my side.
Girl, no. I suggest you leave him, get some self-care going on. You don't need him.
I'm
You
just
don't
saying,
need him.
Tharn's a broken person. And a broken person, how are you going to paint a picture with a broken paintbrush?
You just take the part that's broken, put it in a little piece of paint, and then slap it all over the paint.
So you end up with
Canvas.
something messy.
Yeah, but whose
That's what
life
this
isn't
relationship
messy?
is. You start with broken tools. You have a broken toolkit, and you're trying to make the picture, but the picture is messy because you don't have the right tools. You don't have anything intact to build something the way it needs to be done. You're kind of piecing things together and doing what you can to build some semblance of what looks like a relationship, but honestly, you don't have intact tools to create a real relationship. And that is what Tharn was going through. That's what he was going through with Type.
You're getting kind of deep into this now.
Well, because deserves that, because otherwise it would none of it would make sense unless you look at it in the context of broken people. So Tharn taking the abuse from Type was because he felt like, maybe if I just take it, it'll make this thing work. And that's what he was doing. And then Type. Golf did a really good job of playing Type. Type is another broken individual. Type is somebody who endured sexual assault at a very young age. Not only sexual assault, but a kidnapping. And he probably was
a kidnapping?
Yeah, when he was a child, he was kidnapped.
I'm sorry.
Wow, really? Wow. You are a piece of work. Anyway, can you tell that we're not watching this series together? I mean, anyway, so Type endures a kidnapping as a young boy. Not only is he kidnapped, but he's raped by his abductor. And in the aftermath, everyone around him knows that he was raped by his abductor. And it makes life really tough for Type, because before he ever could reach manhood, his manhood was already kind of stolen from him in the eyes of the people in his community who knew about what happened to him. In terms of all the people around him, they knew he was broken. And so he spent his teen years, I guess, building this image of manhood to try to reclaim that brokenness that everyone around him associated him with. So rather than getting him a therapist like most people should, and rather than acknowledging the trauma that happened to him, instead he becomes kind of a womanizer, and his focus is trying to get with the prettiest girls and trying to get in the most relationships, and kind of like being a babe magnet. And when he's confronted with his feelings for Type, it challenges everything that he's known about himself, and it challenges him to look at the brokenness from his childhood and then try to kind of figure out, like, well, what was always there? Who am I really? How do I really feel about things? How much of what I've been doing is a reaction to this trauma, and how much have I been denying myself as a reaction to this trauma? So he's very conflicted about his feelings about Tharn, because he already associates homosexuality with pedophiles because of his abduction and rape. He already associates homosexuality with being less than manly, and he's been using his adolescence and his young adulthood to define his sense of manliness. And then he's reacting to Tharn with violence because it's a way for him to act out really against the person who abducted and raped him. So where he can't go back to this man who kidnapped him and punch him and talk mean to him and call him all these names, Tharn's willing to take it. And so Type is working through all of his emotions and all of his history with everything that happened to him in real time with this person who is willing to take it all, because they really don't know how to establish a healthy relationship.
Yikes.
But if this is what keeps them around, they're willing to take it. So you have one person who needs to be able to fight against this trauma that happened to him. You have another person who's willing to absorb all of the pain and all of the anguish and everything else, because at this point he doesn't realize what a happy relationship is, because all of his supposedly happy relationships have dissolved for no reason. And then these two people get together, and of course it's screwed up. It's screwed up, and it's messy, and it's terrible, and it's awful to watch, but also it's really amazing to watch. Because even though they are fighting and they're not kind to each other, at least one of them's not kind to the other, at the same time, they both have something that the other one needs. So Type needed somebody who would allow him to work through his feelings. And once he's able to work through his negative associations, that's when he's able to explore his tenderness. And Tharn gives him that room to do so. And so once he's able to get past his acceptance of, yes, I am in a gay relationship, then all of a sudden he's willing to be tender in this gay relationship.
Oh, come on.
I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying for the purposes of the narrative, this is what it is. Then for Tharn, even though Type is constantly fighting him and is constantly, kind of challenging him in many ways that most relationships wouldn't survive, Type always comes back. And every time he comes back, he gets nicer and sweeter and more loving, and they get closer to each other. And it starts to make Tharn think I might be doing something right because I'm constantly taking this abuse, but at the same time, he comes back and he apologizes. He comes back and he tells me that he's sorry and that he's going to do better. And then he does do better for a while. And so it starts to make Tharn believe I may be able to figure this one out. Like maybe I've paid my penance and this is the one that's going to stick. And so when you see not only Type giving tenderness to Tharn, but Tharn actually being able to like accept the tenderness. The first time that Type strokes the back of Tharn's head while Tharn is reading, I think that's episode 6 or 7, I can't remember. The look on Mew's face is like, oh my gosh, this is working. Oh my gosh, this is really turning good. And that's the look of somebody who's like, I'm so used to people leaving, not wanting to just have me around because they like having me around. And so it was good to watch those things. Like a lot of people, if you just were to tell them TharnType has a lot of really hot makeout moments, for some people, if that's what you're looking for in boys love, I'll have to call her back. If that's what you're looking for in boys love, you definitely could find that here. But if you're also looking for a story about people in these weird relationships and trying to figure it all out, that is here as well. And that is one of the things that I really appreciate about this show is that, yeah, they brought you in for the skinship and the fan service, but they kept you by doing a real exploration about, fucked up relationships and the people that are in these fucked up relationships. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've seen people in relationships that made no sense to me, where I didn't understand why somebody would put up with somebody that didn't treat them the way that they deserved. But one of the things that you very rarely think about when you think about people in these fucked up relationships is where did they come from? What was their past? What have they experienced that made them feel like this is better than nothing? Or this is better than where I came from? Or this is okay because I've gone through this other extreme form of abuse or relationship or whatever else. And that is the thing that I think TharnType did for me as a lesson is like, this is about hurt people hurting people and about broken people breaking others. And that was the thing that I really appreciated about this show. I'm going to talk very briefly about Tar and Tum because honestly, they were a side character in this whole thing, so there's really not much to say to them. Tar, his role definitely made a lot more sense because his role definitely moved along the narrative in terms of Long and his interference with Tharn and his history of relationships. But Tar himself, one of the things that I got from Tar, don't worry about it, I'll call you back, Jade. One of the things I got from Tar is having someone else in the show who experienced sexual trauma that gave some kind of perspective to Type, but also somebody who's actively working through sexual trauma because it helps you kind of to put perspective towards Type and what he's actually dealing with. So I know this sounds terrible, but Tar and Tum are boring. I'm so sorry. Tar and Tum are boring. The actor who plays Tum is super fine, but still, Tar and Tum are boring. But Tar, going through all the things that he's going through, the way he's like destroying all the paintings and he's getting away from all of his hobbies and he's transforming into somebody so different than who he was when he and Tharn were together, it shows you how far Type has to travel to get back to who he could have been if he had never been traumatized to begin with. So as you're looking at Tar go through it, and you're seeing him like mentally torture himself, and you see him constantly like waffling through all these emotions and not really being able to get any kind of comfort from anything, it reminds you of what Type must have gone through with the experience that he had as a child. And as a child, when you have even less skills to try to cope with something like that than a teenager would, you can imagine how much that really fucked him up. And so having Tar there, for better or for worse, provided a way for us to be able to see what a hurdle Type had to overcome in order to be valuable in any kind of relationship. So having Tar there was more than just a device of course, finding out what Long has been doing, but he also gave you a glimpse as to like how far Type would have had to have come in order to be able to have a good relationship because of the levels of trauma he'd have to overcome in order to understand, who he is as a person, his sexuality, and everything else. Because one of the things that Tar deals with is the fact that because these men gang raped him, he's dirty, he's filthy, he's worthless. And one of the things that they did in the finale of the show is as Tar is describing his trauma, Type is totally relating to everything he's saying. And he eventually has to tell him to stop because Tar is voicing everything that Type can't say about what he's been through. And I thought that was a really cool move. I thought it really made Tar make sense in the story, and it just kind of again brought everything back to whole and brought everything together. So I really did appreciate that because honestly, Tar and Tum to me made no sense in Love by Chance. Like their storyline didn't seem to connect with any of the other major storylines, and like Type, we didn't see Tharn at all in Love by Chance. So I didn't really get Type either. But now, if it was just a device in order to get us to want to watch TharnType, now Tar and Tum and their presence in this show makes sense. Now that I've given you all the praise and all the things that I loved about this show, the kind of complex narratives that it was trying to explore in the limited amount of time that it could, let me talk about a couple of things that I wasn't happy with for this show. What I wasn't happy with for this show is that it never seemed like the idea of therapy ever came up to anybody in this show. Like, it just seemed like therapy was not a thing to be considered. Now, we do know that Tar actually did end up receiving some therapy because it was talked about in Love by Chance, so good for him. But it just wasn't really put as something in the forefront. And as a person who has been listening to K-pop for years, as a person who has been interested in different Asian culture for a while, and as a person who is a fan of SHINee and who was a fan of SHINee when Jonghyun passed away, I'm very sensitive to the fact that mental health assistance is not super popular in a lot of Asian countries. And we're just now kind of getting into a place where people are saying that they're willing to seek treatment and that other people aren't calling them weak for seeking that treatment. And so one of the things that I would have loved that I think would have been really progressive is if Tharn and Type and Tar talked about therapy. That would have been something that I would love to have seen in this show that we didn't see. Another thing that I disliked about this show is that in order to kind of keep things from being super gross feeling for those of us watching the show, a lot of things were left unsaid. But unfortunately, a lot of things were left unsaid. And those first 2 or 3 episodes where Tharn was becoming more physical with Type and Type didn't seem like he was a willing participant in a lot of that physical activity. From what I've heard from people, the novel kind of explains it more because a lot of it is like head narrative. There needed to have been something there to make it okay. And even though they did end up in a happy relationship at the end of the series, by the end of the series they've been with each other for 3, almost 4 years, they didn't do a really good job of letting it be known that the things that Tharn and Type were doing with each other in the beginning were consensual. And because of that, for people who are extremely sensitive to non-consensual sexual situations, this wasn't a series that they could get through easily. And it's something that I feel like the writers and the director really did a disservice by not making it clear that Type was okay with things. Even if he was like, I'm okay with it, but I don't like you, that's fine. Because people sleep with folks they don't like all the time. But it made it seem like I hate you because you did this thing to me. And that's something that's a really high hurdle for people who have experienced sexual trauma to get over in fiction as well as reality. So those are two things I didn't like. And then on to kind of more frivolous talk about the series. I don't understand what the fucking point was of the neighbors. I really don't. Like, again, like I had said at the beginning, you could really divide this series into two halves. 1 through 6, 7 through 12. Because the first part of the series, especially like the first 2 or 3 episodes, the neighbors next door seemed like they were going to be like a comedic counterpart to the more sexy elements of Tharn and Type's relationship. But like after Tharn and Type moved out, we never heard anything about their neighbors anymore. And the reason I bring up the neighbors is because it seemed like the writers of the show were going to bring in a narrative storyline about the one neighbor who was a Korea boo deciding to confess to his roommate who was clueless about their attraction but was totally invested in the attraction between Tharn and Type next door. And it was alluded to, like there was at least one sentence that they made it seem like, oh, he likes, but then they never went anywhere. In fact, I'm going to try to get the characters' names because I have my drama list pulled up so I can see all of the names of the characters. So the characters I'm speaking of are So and Chloe, I believe are their names. So Chloe is the one who's obsessed with Tharn and Type in terms of trying to listen through the wall and see what's going on with them in their relationship. So is the Korea boo one who's like constantly listening to K-pop and got the K-pop posters and speaking in Korean, even though I think he's supposed to be tying the story. Nothing happens with these two. Nothing at all. And so that was really a narrative waste of time, in my opinion. They definitely could have spent that time doing something else. They could have spent that time building up more information about the friendship between Type and Techno. They could have spent that time kind of showing us Type's parents and how do Type's parents interact with him in the wake of his kidnapping and assault. That was never explored at all. And if we knew kind of how his parents treated the situation, I think that would cast a lot more light on why Type is the way that he is. So that was something that I thought was disappointing. Also, I don't understand what the point was of bringing Saint and Mean into the storyline at the end of episode 12. Like, I guess it was to remind people that, oh, this is related to Love by Chance, but by the time you've gone through 12 episodes and you've become connected to these characters the way you have, you really could give a damn about Love by Chance at this point. Not saying that we're not happy to see Saint again, or not saying we're unhappy to see Mean. I'm just saying at this point, that little cameo thing at the end was unneeded. But it does bring us to a point that I would like to talk about because I saw something on Twitter about it and it needs to be discussed right now. I do not want Mew and Golf in Love by Chance 2.
What?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm sorry. I know. So it's already been confirmed, I guess, that they are going to do Love by Chance 2. But there's a lot of drama between the management company of Perth and Mean and Plan and I think Mean. I don't know if Mean's the same management company, but Perth and Plan and Title and Mark. Their management company was at odds with the management company of Saint, and because of that and everything related to that, Saint is not going to be a part of Love by Chance 2, which I feel like, what is the even point of doing part 2 if your main couple is not going to be in the sequel? Like, that's stupid, but I digress. But there's just a lot of I'm not going to get into it here. You can read about it on my drama list and other places. There's a lot of drama regarding what happened in the aftermath of Love by Chance. What happened between Perth and Saint, what happened between the management companies, what happened between the director and the creator of Love by Chance and the management companies of the actors. Like, there's a lot of drama surrounding that whole situation. As that stands, because of all of the drama and bullshit because of Love by Chance, TharnType got no support. TharnType was a self-funded project by Mame. She paid for all that shit. And that's the reason why things that you normally see in Boys Love didn't happen in this drama. You didn't see people eating seaweed strips. You didn't see people drinking aloe drinks. You didn't see people putting on makeup and stuff, because this was a self-funded project. And because they had to struggle and stretch and scrimp in order to make this thing come true, I don't think that Love by Chance has earned the right to be able to make any money off of the actors and the goodwill that TharnType built up. Not only that, but like the director of Love by Chance was like, yeah, TharnType is just, softcore porn. If that's the way you feel, you better not try to get Mew and Gulf to show up in your shitty production. I shouldn't say that. It's probably not going to be shitty. It's probably going to be really nice because Love by Chance was really nice. But I'm just saying, if you feel that way, if you're so bold and bad in your opinion about what you think of TharnType and how it's not quality the way that you're used to doing it, do not get Mew and Gulf involved in what you're doing. Bring back the same actors that you used to play Type and Techno in Love by Chance. Forget that Mew and Gulf and Mild even exist, and keep doing what you do, because you haven't earned the right. You haven't earned the right. You haven't. You don't know how to treat people. You don't know how to talk about people. You sound extremely jealous and bitter. Don't get TharnType involved. Just don't do it. But I wanted to make sure I put that point out there, because just the mere idea of them getting embroiled and all the bullshit going on with Love by Chance, I don't want it to touch Mew and Golf. I really, really don't. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I want to make sure I talk about before I end this dialogue here. Oh, I need to say what a good job Mild did as Techno. I actually liked his Techno a lot more than I liked Title's Techno. Like, Title's Techno was stupid. When you watch Love by Chance, Title was dumb. Like the character he played was just dumb. And that's the reason why when at the end of the show, he gets conned into thinking that he needs to take responsibility for raping King Claw or sleeping with King Claw. I don't know how they're going to justify that. That situation is still super icky. You're kind of like, well, he would be tricked into believing all this because he's a dummy. Whereas the Techno in TharnType, he was like, I wouldn't say he was a dummy. It was more like he's goofy. That's the best word to put. Like, he's goofy, but at the same time, his intuition was really strong. Without anybody telling him, he knew that Tharn and Type were going to get together. He made klutzy mistakes, and maybe he divulged a little bit more information than he was supposed to during certain instances, but he totally clocked that. And he's a good friend, and he's also pretty smart in his own right. Just maybe not, quick, but still pretty smart. And so I think Mild did an amazing job. And I've watched him in a couple of other things, and I look forward to seeing more of his acting. I've already said it, but I thought that Hitter, who played Tum, was super fine. I'd like to see him in more stuff. And finally, like I had said earlier, I think that Kauna did an amazing job as Long. And I know that he's got another project coming up. What is the name of that project? Oh, That's My Umbrella is the next project that he has coming up. I will be watching that because he's proven to me through his performance in TharnType that he's got what it takes to make acting fun, and I want to see it. But these are my thoughts about TharnType. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If I was having to rank my favorite boys loves of 2019, definitely TharnType would be, either tied for number 2 or it would be number 2 all on its own. Despite everything that has happened, I still feel like history making our days count up to episode 9 should be number 1, because the level of consistent acting across the board from everybody involved in the production was just on another level. Like, everybody involved in that production gave their all and gave you performances that stick with you. But I feel like TharnType is definitely either a clear number 2 or a tied number 2 with History Trapped, and right underneath them is Theory of Love. So yeah, I think that TharnType was a really good show. It is not for everybody, but it definitely was for me. And I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me for 15 minutes while I get all deep about TharnType, because I know for a lot of you, this is not what you were here for. Like, a lot of you were here to, like, you know, kiki and laugh and talk about the ice cube passing and stuff like that. But I wanted to take it in this place because I needed to be able to understand why it's more than the clips that you see on YouTube of people making out. There really is an actual story here. Oh, a character that I didn't even mention that I also want to give a shout out to. Let me go ahead and look it up real quick. Is that... Sorry, you guys. I know I am taking up a lot of your time. I'm not really meaning to, but I can't find him on the list. Combe. I think it's Combe. Yeah, it's Combe. Okay, so Combe, who played the friend of Type when Type went home and Type got in the fight at the bar with the foreigner who was like, I like you and I want to be with you. I want to give like a little segment to him because I've seen that actor in things before. I think it's Combe. I might be wrong. I may be wrong. I'm probably wrong. That's not his name. Shit. What is his name? Because I know this character from another show that I was watching where he got his ass handed to him. Anyway, the guy who plays the friend from when Type went home to visit his family. Oh, shit. Oh my gosh. I just said that I would have liked to spend more time with Type's family. I totally forgot. Type went home and we did meet his family because his dad owns the resort. Duh. Well, based on his parents, the way that they talk to him, I can see why Type is the way he is. Because they're like, you know, nothing ever happened. Everything's good. We're all chill, whatever else. So yeah. Okay, that makes more sense now. But anyway, when Type went home to his dad's resort during a school break that they had, he met up with an old friend of his. And his old friend and him go to a bar. When they go to the bar, they're having fun. And this foreign guy who was staying at his dad's hotel approaches him and is like, I've had my eye on you for a while. I want to fuck. And of course...
I got my eyes on you. Everything that I see...
Go away! Anyway... So, of course, Type immediately lashes out and is like trying to fight and is like, I hate these fucking fags. I'm just saying, that's how he was. And his friend, I'm in the show, he was. And his,
I know, but that's still like unwarranted.
That's what he said. Anyway, his friend goes up to him and is like, you know, for years I've heard you talk all this homophobic shit, and I just need to let you know right now, I'm gay, and I'm tired of you talking about gay people the way you do, because I feel like you're talking about me. And if you're going to talk about me like that and make me feel shitty about myself, I don't have any reason for us to be friends anymore, because I'm off all that. I'm off all that self-degradation bullshit. So the actor who did that, you did a really good job, and I just want to make sure that you're acknowledged for what you did, even though apparently you are not listed in the cast credits, because I'm looking through the cast credits right now on my drama list and I'm not seeing you on here, unless maybe I just can't read. It could be that I can't read, but I really don't see you on here. So I just want to make sure I said something about that, because that was important. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry if this review was not as entertaining as some of my other reviews have been, but I feel like this was the conversation I needed to have about this series. Thank you for allowing me to have this conversation, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.